Hello, I'm Dave Kellogg, your guide on exploring China. Today, I'm going to show you what you can't miss in the center of it all, the brain of modern China, Beijing. Beijing is a city in fast forward, and yet it's been a great capital for centuries. In the last half century, modern Beijing has transformed from a city of 700,000 in 1949 to as many as 18 million today. This city has experienced and survived wars with foreign powers, civil wars, revolutions, and economic upheavals. In 2008, it held the largest Olympic Games in world history. Ever-changing Beijing offers days of exploration, and still more surprises keep on coming. Beijing's one of those special cities that has innumerable worthwhile places to see and experience. So for this episode, we have had to be extra selective. Today, we must see Tiananmen Square, the National Museum, 3 huge palaces, and the Wall. We also must taste the duck and local snacks, as well as hear local traditional music. And we can't forget to stay in a historical neighborhood. I knew 3 words of Chinese long before I knew how to say ni hao. What were they, you asked? Tiananmen, as in Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square is the largest public square in the world, measuring in at more than 100 acres. Tiananmen, named after the Gate of Heavenly Peace, which now hosts Mao Zedong's portrait, was first built in 1651, acting as an approach to the Palace of the Forbidden City. In 1958, it grew by 4-fold into a huge concrete plaza. Today, Tiananmen is significant for what's on it, as well as what's around it. First, what's on the square? Come at sunrise or sunset to see the raising or lowering of the People's Republic of China's national flag. The monument to the people's heroes stands a bit further south. On the southern end, you can enter the mausoleum to see Mao's preserved corpse, of which no one is allowed to film. Around Tiananmen includes the Great Hall of the People, where the National Congress convenes. Directly opposite stands the newly revamped National Museum. The National Museum, which reopened in early 2011 after 4 years of renovations, now is the largest museum in the world in terms of floor space. The museum focuses on 2 main themes, one about China's struggle to regain power from the Opium War in 1840 to the present, and the other about ancient China. Regarding the latter, be sure to explore the porcelain masterpieces from the 15th to 19th centuries, as well as exquisite wooden carvings of Buddha and Bodhisattvas from before the 13th century. Meanwhile, the museum's ancient bronze sculptures represent some of the oldest and most fascinating pieces in all of China. One bronze prize is the Simu Wu Ding, or cauldron. At 1,836 pounds, nearly 1 ton, the ding is one of the heaviest ancient bronze pieces in the world, an incredible feat considering it was made more than 3,000 years ago during the Shang dynasty. The cauldron's weight doesn't burden the grace of its intricate details. Mysterious animal and human motifs adorn the edges. Their symbolic meaning is not fully understood, but archaeologists believe an ancient king had this vessel made to commemorate his dead mother. If you have time, it's worth going through the museum's section on post-revolutionary China, which expresses the official perspective on how the government of the People's Republic of China came to power. On October 1st, 1949, it was from the Gate of Heavenly Peace that Mao proclaimed China a People's Republic. Beyond his portrait, you arrive at the Imperial Palace, commonly referred to as the Forbidden City. In the 15th century, Ming Emperor Yongle moved his capital from Nanjing, the south capital, to Dadu, the Mongolian name for this city. He renamed the city Beijing, the north capital. He ordered the capital to be revamped with open lanes and structures, the crown of which was the Forbidden City. He was the first of 24 emperors to live within its walls. It seems Yongle and his successors spared no expense. The surviving complex, much of it remains from when it was first built, consists of 980 buildings with 8,707 rooms covering 183 acres. The Forbidden City was divided into two major sections, the open and sprawling front court on the southern end, and the more compact back court on the northern end. The front court served ceremonial purposes, while the back court served as the residence of the emperor and his family. The day-to-day operations of the empire were run from the back court as well. An observer can determine a lot about a building just by examining the rooftops. First of all, the yellow symbolizes the emperor. Meanwhile, the line of statues typically consist of a dragon at the rear and a man riding a phoenix at the front. The total number of statuettes in between the phoenix and dragon tells visitors the importance of the building. The Hall of Supreme Harmony is a 10-statuette front court structure, extremely important. It held the major ceremonies such as the enthroning of a new emperor. Other backcourt halls, such as the Palace of Heavenly Purity or the Hall of Mental Cultivation, dealt with lesser affairs. Usually it was the emperor running the show, with one significant exception, Qing Dynasty Empress Cixi from the late 19th century. She clawed her way up from concubine to favorite concubine, and finally to head of the empire. Having a woman running the empire was quite rare, and it only worked by having her ensure the installment of a weak male heir that she could control. It is said that Cixi would hide behind a screen here and secretly call the shots. The Palace Museum holds an array of exhibition halls and takes a full day to completely explore. Definitely try to spend time in the Imperial Gardens at the north end. It was into the Palace of Gathered Elegance that Cixi first arrived as a low-rank concubine. Today, it is an exhibit of the Qing Dynasty's last emperor, Puyi. The 2-year-old boy gained the title from Cixi's deathbed in 1908. His rule was short-lived. By the time he was 6 years old, he abdicated the throne, but continued to wander the halls until 1924. Then, a warlord took Beijing and expelled Puyi and his dysfunctional court altogether. In 1925, the government of the Republic of China made the Forbidden City into the Palace Museum. If your legs have the strength after a day at the museum, continue north to Cole Hill for the most expansive view of the Forbidden City. Twice a year, Beijing streets would shut down, go silent, and the emperor would leave his conclave in the Forbidden City and travel down this road with his entourage. They would come here, the Temple of Heaven. The emperor, considered the son of heaven, worshipped a blend of religions, including shamanism, Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. He held the heavenly mandate, which gave him his authority to rule his empire. In order to maintain that mandate, he oversaw sacred rituals, anything from burning incense to sacrificing a bull. Squares and circles determine the overall design of the temple grounds. Squares, which represent earth, serve as the foundations for the altars. The altars themselves are round to symbolize heaven. Another symbol of heaven comes with the deep blue roofs. The most eye-catching feature of the Temple of Heaven complex is the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests. It was built completely of wood and without nails. The current structure is a replica, the original burning down in the late 19th century thanks to a bolt of inauspicious lightning. Following the same design, other important structures include the Imperial Vault of Heaven and the circular mound altar. The latter appears the least significant, but in fact is the opposite. Here, the emperor knelt in the center and prayed for rain. his voice echoing off the perfectly circular balustrade. The Temple of Heaven was a high-pressure environment for the emperor. A screw-up during the rituals could mean the crops would run dry, the people would run out of food, and the empire would starve. For Beijingers today, however, Temple of Heaven is an ideal park to relax and play. Come here on the weekends and enjoy one of the best places in China for people watching. Oh, okay. 明白。
明白吧？我踢完一脚，你。
然后我踢。
哎，对你。
我踢。
哎，你踢完给他。好。
Having Heaven's Mandate had its perks too, which you'll see at the Summer Palace. This enormous garden developed near to the scope and scale you see today under Qing Dynasty Emperor Qianlong. Fascinatingly, the main features of the grounds, Kunming Lake, Nanhu Island, and Longevity Hill, all are man-made. As his mother's 60th birthday present, Qianlong ordered that thousands of laborers put the landscape together at a cost of 1/7 of the empire's annual revenue. The grounds can both be appreciated for its grandeur and its details. The long corridor, extending almost 8 football fields and featuring more than 14,000 paintings, is the longest of its kind in the world. Around the backside of Longevity Hill, you'll find Suzhou Street, a neat series of canal walkways, shops, and cafes that mimic the famous canal city of Suzhou near Shanghai. Meanwhile, climbing Longevity Hill to the immense tower of Buddhist incense offers fantastic views of Beijing on a clear day. Within the tower itself stands the 1,000-armed and multi-faced Guanyin Bodhisattva, cast in 1574. Also, I recommend finding the colorful Sea of Wisdom temple that hides behind the tower at the crest of the hill. 1,000 Buddha statues adorn the outer walls. In the 19th century, the Qing dynasty underwent a drawn-out decline. A sclerotic and corrupt imperial bureaucracy, as well as incursions by European nations and painful monetary and territorial concessions to them, took their tolls. Wars erupted, and the Summer Palace did not escape the plunder. As you can see at this temple, all the statues within reach of colonial bayonets were destroyed. A few decades later, Empress Cixi embezzled 30 million taels of silver to restore the Summer Palace to a point beyond even its former grandeur. The scheme worked, but at a heavy cost to the Qing Empire's bank account. Cixi didn't bother to spend anything on what is often referred to as the Old Summer Palace. Just west of the Summer Palace, the Old Summer Palace, called Yuanmingyuan, also went up in flames at the hands of the colonial invaders. Yuanmingyuan, which translates more directly to the Garden of Perfect Brilliance, was even larger in scale than the Summer Palace gardens. Qing Dynasty Emperor Kangxi first broke ground here, and the successive emperors greatly added to its splendor. Today, you must imagine 3 interconnected super gardens that displayed dozens of unique scenes: flowing brooks, lotus ponds, luxuriant fountains, and even Jesuit-designed European palaces. Beijing has suffered at the hands of revolution, invasion, and time. Much of the past has been destroyed altogether. Other sites have been masterfully restored. Yuanmingyuan is a rare instance of a place that remains as it fell. While not exactly in Beijing City, you can't say you've seen the capital if you haven't visited the Great Wall. The Badaling section of the wall, unlike the gardens of Yuanmingyuan, has been refurbished to the hilt. It is the most famous, and consequently the most crowded, of the Great Wall sites. Get here early in the morning, however, and you'll find you can have Badaling all to yourself. No, the walls cannot be seen from outer space with the naked eye. And no, they are not all made of brick. And no, they are not one continuous structure. Perhaps a better term for them is great walls. Add the S. Ancient walls run for thousands of miles across modern China. For millennia, there existed a tension between nomadic peoples to the north and agricultural peoples to the south. And walls were the South's consistent solution to keep the marauding northerners out. The common Chinese name for the Great Wall, Changcheng, which literally translates to Long Wall, didn't enter people's vernacular until the Ming Dynasty in the 15th century. Walls had been around long before then, but the structures were made of rammed earth, eroded more quickly, and perhaps were less noteworthy. They didn't likely appear the way they do at Badaling until around the 17th century. Heavy stonework, bastions, and crenellations that are quite similar to Beijing's former city walls. It's interesting that most of the heavy-duty walls, like what you see around Badaling, are found within reasonable distance of the once walled capital. And the last big question, did they work for defense? Historians argue not exactly. Attackers generally just would take the long way around, and the Ming Dynasty's empire ended up extending farther north than the location of the walls anyway. Some argue that the walls did come into their own during the Qing dynasty. Rather than use them for defense, it employed them for fast transportation through rough terrain, and used the towers as storage houses. The Qing's empire extended far north of the walls, perhaps thanks to them. It seems the walls served better for offense than defense. Whether they worked or not isn't the point. The Great Wall, in all its forms, is definitely a jaw-dropper.
Independent source to the real China. Blue Ocean Network. BON.
Blue Ocean Network.
Blue Ocean Network.
Giving you everything you need to know about China.
Everything and anything about China.
We've got your top shows such as Take Me to China, China Price Watch, Media Watch, China Take, China Log, BizWire, and much, much more.
Keeping you up to speed halfway across the world.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Blue Ocean Network.
Blue Ocean Network.
Blue Ocean Network.
You're gonna love it.
Beijing has a long list of hostels and 2, 3, 4, and 5-star hotels. You can take your pick. But one locale you really should try to find a bed in is amongst a neighborhood hutong, which is a Chinese term for Beijing's narrow alleyways. Not so many years ago, central Beijing was composed almost entirely of these small streets, a legacy that stretches back at least 500 years.
The word hutong derives from a Mongolian term for water well, back when Genghis Khan's descendants ruled the region as the Yuan dynasty. Somehow the term came to refer to the streets themselves. Most hutongs run along an east-west direction and are flanked by garden courtyards called Siheyuans.
Tonight, I'm staying in a Siheyuan hotel. There are a number of such lodgings throughout Beijing. Siheyuan literally means a courtyard surrounded by 4 buildings. One family would typically reside in one Siheyuan complex. The entryways to the homes would face to the south to catch the most light and prevent the winter Siberian winds from blowing in from the north. In the Sihuyuans and their Hutong neighborhoods, the sky-rise buildings are left behind and the noises of the Beijing juggernaut become more finite. I recommend wandering the Hutongs in the early morning and late afternoon. Do both, as each time of day has its own personality. You really get a sense of old Beijing. What's the favorite dish in Beijing? Of course, Peking duck. There are dozens of duck restaurants around the city. One favorite is Dadong. Ni hao. There are 3 Dadong roast duck restaurants in Beijing. They are known for preparing the duck in the traditional method, one key point being that they roast it with the wood of fruit trees. Part of the experience is watching the chefs masterfully slice the duck into its different portions. Okay, so now I'm going to see how exactly you eat the duck. Okay. Add a little bit more duck. Let's try this. Wow. Perfectly balanced with the onion, the sauce, and the bread like a tortilla. It's just really, really nice flavor. The restaurant roasts traditional duck, but it also serves avant-garde Chinese dishes to round out its menu. Dadong also offers specialty dishes that are seasonal. This is called song in spring, shrimp in like a tea. Wow, it actually tastes like spring. Beijing is also known for its snacks. And if you come for those, head to Snack Street alongside the shopping district Wangfujing. You can try snacks from all over China on Wangfujing Snack Street. But if you want to try a Beijing specialty, I recommend tanghulu. 一个tanghulu 是多少钱？5块钱。好。It's basically a crab apple and a candy shell, sweet and sour. It's delicious. Just an FYI, in popular areas around Beijing, you may be approached by a friendly person or couple. After talking for a while, they'll invite you for tea at a tea house. Don't go. It's a scam, and unwitting travelers will end up getting stuck with a huge bill. Another nuisance comes with people offering to show you their paintings. I recommend that you politely decline. In 2008, Beijing and the whole nation of China had its shining moment, the Summer Olympics. The event itself was immense, and it left an impressive aftermath. One permanent footprint of the Olympics is the National Stadium, colloquially termed the Bird's Nest. Cities commonly have a hard time figuring out how to use their former Olympic sporting sites, and the Bird's Nest, in part designed by renowned Chinese artist Ai Weiwei, is still seeking out its long-term purpose. Frequently, it holds concerts and sporting events. In the winter, a snow park is installed. Next door, the Beijing Aquatic Center, or the Water Cube, seems to have found its future. It holds an indoor water park.
I can't believe it. I get here in the morning and I get my own personal water park. This is gonna be fun.
"25 Olympic swimming records were broken inside the state-of-the-art water cube. Since then, another record has been broken. The water park is the largest of its kind in Asia." The Pearl Market consists of numerous floors and sells most anything you can imagine.
Hello, you want my scarf?
Okay, 谢谢.
Including pearls.
Hello, you want this?
这是假的还是真的的？真的。There are lots of markets in Beijing, in fact all over China, and the rule of bargaining applies across the board. Low ball, they're high ball. If they say 100, you say 20. If they want to sell and you want to buy, you'll work out a price that both of you can live with. Otherwise, they'll say no or you'll walk away. Either scenario, that's business, and no one should be offended if it doesn't work out. At the same time, when you make a purchase, don't expect too many warranties or guarantees. Remember the term 假的, fake.
Once you got your fill of fake, you should still have plenty of room for authentic. Laoshi Chaguan is one of the most famous traditional tea house theaters. Here, you can sip on Chinese teas, but more interestingly, you can sit up close to watch classic Peking opera.
Peking opera requires an attuned ear. Otherwise, it sounds, well, out of tune.
Operas in China originated from song and dance performances of prehistoric religious ceremonies. Over the centuries, the art form developed in different regions of China and eventually became popular in Beijing under Qing Dynasty Emperor Qianlong. It entertained as well as provided a safe venue to educate and criticize society. Over time, routines developed not just in terms of speech and music, but movements. All of them are suggestive and symbolic rather than realistic, which explains why many foreigners find the art so strange and exotic. Screens that translate the operatic language prove very helpful. Usually helpful, even to the Chinese. If you want to make your operatic experience completely formal, consider getting a ticket to the new National Center for Performing Arts, also known as the Beijing Egg. It hosts traditional Peking opera, as well as other opera styles from around China, and the world for that matter.
If you want to go less formal, head to Sanlitun. Specifically, the area called the Village offers glitzier shopping as well as bars and restaurants that run the gamut. I hope you get the picture. The past, the present, the future. There's a momentum in this capital that you cannot help but get swept up by. So many sights, tastes, people, activities, and something new is cropping up all the time. This is an amazing town. If you haven't been here yet, pack your bags and set your clock for Beijing.